Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I take the dog out for a walk and deliver an episode while we stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It is a humid morning. It's a little later than I've been walking. It's 9:24 on Sunday morning, August 12th. And today I'm out with the dog, getting a bit of a stroll, and we're going to talk a little bit about some games I've played. I'm going to try to keep this one a little shorter. The length of the dog walk is about 25 minutes or so. And I know that's a little longer than the podcast usually goes. So I'm going to try to not talk the entire length of the podcast. I may end up having to just pause for a bit here and there as I try to wrangle the dog, because being out this late in the morning, there's a lot more dogs out, and the goal is to not encounter other dogs if I can avoid it. So yesterday was Toggle Top Day, which is an all-day game event held at my local game club, Toggle Gaming, in Palatine, Illinois. I got to meet a number of new people that I hadn't hung out with before. That was pretty cool. I got to play a bunch of games that I don't play very often, and it's nearing the middle of the month, so I just wanted to do a little bit of a what have I been playing episode, particularly what do we play at Toggle Top Day. So Toggle Top Day was conceived of as an all-day gaming event for members of our community. Get together and play from 11 a.m. till 9 p.m., although the venue didn't have anything going after that, so they said we could stay past 9. And in fact, when I left just after 9, about 9:20, there were still 20 or more people hanging out and playing there, which is pretty cool in terms of the engagement of the community. I'm not sure whether the value of that event for the bar was worth giving up a Saturday for. I don't know if they had something else that they would have done in that space instead. But so we'll have to see whether this is something we get to do again. But I got to play a whole bunch of games, 7 different games, and in a couple cases multiple games of particular games. So I'm gonna talk about these all a little bit. Some of these, only one of these is a game I hadn't played before. The rest of them were all games I'd played before in various levels of awareness. So I started off the day with a couple rounds of Werewords. Werewords is new to me this month, so this is the first time I'm talking about it here. It's a 20 questions style game built around the Werewords, the werewolf model, particularly the one-night werewolf model, where it's played quickly. And the idea is that one person knows the secret word, actually 3 people know the secret word, and the rest of the group is trying to guess the secret word. And 2 of the people who know the secret word, one of them is a werewolf and one of them is a seer. And the werewolf is trying to prevent the seer from figuring out who the werewolf is. Or the werewolf is trying to prevent the villagers from figuring out who the werewolf is, and also trying to stop them from guessing the magic word. Meanwhile, if the werewolf figures out who the seer is, the werewolf wins. So the seer tries to get everyone to figure it out, but not reveal themselves. The werewolf tries to get everyone to figure it out, or tries to get everyone not to figure it out without giving themselves away. So it's a fun game. I talked about it a bit. If you go back and look, I talked a little bit about originality and creativity. There was a bit of a hubbub in the game world when Ted Alspach released this game, because it's very similar to another game called Insider, which uses 20 questions as the game model. And there was a little bit of a hullabaloo about whether he was borrowing too much from the ideas from the Insider. But that was Werewords, a fun game. Takes about 10 minutes to play. All told, we played 3 rounds of it. There was one round where I was the werewolf and I totally screwed up and everyone figured out who I was, which was really stupid. But it was very funny. We also played a game called Ninjitsu. Ninjitsu was a small box card game with a pretty simple mechanism. You have a card that you can play and you play it in front of you, and you can either play it in front of you to be points, or you can, and then you put it face down, or you play it face up for its action. And of course, if you play it for its action, then you don't get the points and it gets discarded after you play it. If you play it for points, then it's face down in front of you and you have the points there, but it can be stolen. So then other people can play cards that let them steal, or actually they can just for their turn steal your treasure, your card that's in front of you. So of course some of the cards are traps, and if you steal them, something bad happens. Meanwhile, if you steal treasure, then you get the treasure face up and it's can't be stolen anymore, at least not directly. It's kind of locked in. So that's a nice little mechanism. It's a fun little game. I wouldn't mind playing again. A nice kind of game to keep, to have in your glove compartment or whatever. It takes 2 minutes to teach and 10 minutes to play. Works out pretty nicely. Apparently it's pretty good at 2-player. I thought we played 5 and it was pretty fun. So, Ninjitsu. It has an exclamation point in the title at the end, in case you were wondering where that was. The one other game that I played that I would call a small game or a short game is Onitama. Onitama is a game I played once before, about a year and 3 months ago, when I was traveling for work. I stopped in at a game shop, and the guy running the game shop had Onitama set up. Onitama is a light abstract game with a pretty clever mechanism where you have 4 pawns and 1 king, or maybe you have 5 pawns and 1 king, 6 pawns and 1 king, I don't recall exactly. So in order to make a move in Onitama, you have 2 cards that allow you to move your pawns in a couple different ways. Then you can use one of those cards to move your pawn or your king, and then you put that card in a kind of on-deck spot for your opponent. And your opponent then makes a move and gives one of the cards that they have to you. So you start the round taking the card that they played at the round before. So each round there's like a delay of a round where you don't get to use the card, but you can see the card that's coming. So there's an interesting element of planning in which you make a move knowing what the possible moves the next player can make are. And your goal is to either capture the opponent's king or get your king onto their throne. It's a pretty simple game that has a lot of variability due to the different cards, because you only put 5 cards into play. And so the rhythm of or maybe 6. So the rhythm of the game is such that it's 5 cards into play. The rhythm is such that you only ever have 2 moves you can make, and when the other player gets to go, you know what they're going to be able to do. It was fun. I played 2 rounds of it, won both of them, but again, a nice game, not one that I would probably go out and buy. But my game club has it, so I don't need to. That's Onitama. So those were the really short games, and then I had 2 medium. So those were the really short games. Then I had 2 medium length games and 2 longer games that I got to play. The first medium-length game was 5 Tribes. Nope. The first medium-length game was Roll for the Galaxy. Roll for the Galaxy is a favorite of mine. I really like it. My game design partner, Rob, really likes Race for the Galaxy better. And I wonder, it's interesting, I wonder if we each like the one we do because that's the one we learned first. And the other one seems complicated because you're having to address it in a different way. I've since played Race for the Galaxy a number of times online. I've only played it once or twice in card form. But they're very similar games. The biggest difference, to my mind, is that in Roll for the Galaxy, the produce action happens before the ship action. And in Race for the Galaxy, the produce action happens after the ship action. So if you are trying to do a money strategy, you can leverage that money much faster in Roll for the Galaxy if both produce and ship happen, because you can produce and then ship in the same turn. So you can use your goods to get points much more quickly than you can in Race for the Galaxy, where no matter what, there's a delay between making your goods and shipping them. Roll for the Galaxy also has more currencies in play. Race for the Galaxy uses cards for everything, and in Roll for the Galaxy, you use money to put dice into your cube, and your dice go in these places, and you have the... Anyway, they're different enough that they're fun games. Like I said, I like Roll for the Galaxy better, especially toward the end of the game where you're rolling 6 or 7 dice at the same time. That's really fun. It was a tight game. 5 of us played, and it came down to the tiebreaker, which was how many dice do you have left in your cup, which was me. I had a bunch in my cup, so that was fun. The Ambition expansion is mixed in, and although I have that and have played it once, I didn't know the rules well enough to teach it, particularly given there were a couple brand new players in the game. And while ultimately Roll for the Galaxy is a relatively simple game, at the beginning it's pretty complicated. And if you haven't played it before, there's a lot to keep track of, and you have to kind of constantly be thinking, wait, how does this work again? So adding in the ambition tiles was going to be tricky. So, but it did reinforce it to me that I really need to learn the ambition rules better, because I think if I had known the ambition rules really well, I would have just taught those at the same time, and we could have played with the whole game. So that's that game. Okay. The other shorter game that I got to play was the last game of the night, and that was Grimm Forest. I talked about Grimm Forest here on the podcast before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Suffice to say that it was a fun round. I think it was the first time I've only played 3. In the past, I've played 4 most of the time. 3 is interesting because there's no market card in play. There's just the 3 locations. It was a fun one. Not as fun as previous times I've played. I'm not sure exactly why. Not as many Fable cards came into play this time as have in previous ones. And we only had a couple monsters come out. It's good. Ultimately it's not great. I think each time I play it, I'm a little less impressed with it than I was before. Although it is a beautiful game. I'm sure it'll stay in my collection for a while, and maybe future plays will bring it back for me. This one, it was fine. It just didn't go so far. That's to say, I did win on the tiebreaker, because one other player and I finished all 3 houses at the same time, and the tiebreaker is whoever has the most brick houses. And I built 2 straw and 1 brick, and that person built 2 wood and a straw. So I win. Finally, I had 2 longer games that I got to play. I got to play a 2-player game of 5 Tribes, which was fun. I've never played 5 Tribes 2 players. That game really holds up. I like it a lot. The Mancala part is really thinky. We played pretty fast. The person who was playing with me kind of had to go, so we didn't spend a ton of time. We tried not to let ourselves get into analysis paralysis too deeply, but we did try to finish quickly. If you haven't played 5 Tribes, let me give you the 10-second version. It's a Mancala game, so there's a grid of tiles that have little meeples all over them. And you pick up the meeples and you drop them in a path such that the last meeple you drop has to match the color of at least one meeple on the tile you're dropping it on. And then you pick up all the meeples of that color and you get to do something like kill a meeple that belongs to someone else, or get a bunch of points based on the colors that are around the meeples you picked up, or get some market cards which are used for things. It was interesting to play with the copy that we have at Toggle, which was bought the very first year that Five Tribes came out at Gen Con, which means that it has cards with servants in it, which in recent printings are called fakirs, but in the original one they were called slaves. And so it is really icky to buy slaves out of the market, even though mechanically they're the same as these fakirs, which are basically just workers. Having them called slaves, felt gross. So I can see why. Like I wouldn't be happy with the game if I had slaves in it instead of fakirs. So, but it's a fun game. Finally, the other long game that we played was the highlight of the night, and in fact just reminded me how right I am about it. And that was A Study in Emerald, first edition. A Study in Emerald, as you all remember, is my second most favorite game, maybe third, I'll have to look, I'm pretty sure second, right after Android Netrunner. And it is incredible. It's got hand management, it's got area control, it's got hidden roles, it's got double agents, it's got vampires and zombies, both of which came out in our game. It was a roller coaster, a riot. There were assassinations, there were zombies eating people, there were vampires coming out. It was just really, really neat. I enjoyed the game immensely. I looked, it's been over 3 years since I played it because it feels like such a burden to get out to the table, although having read the rules and then explaining it, the teach went really well. All three of the new players, they recognized, oh man, there's so much going on here, but all three enjoyed it. All three got the rules right away and we were able to play it. I think it also speaks to how much deck building has become a thing in the last couple of years, because the basic add to your deck, play cards mechanism that's at the heart of that game, everybody knew it to start. Two of the three new players were experienced Dominion players, so they understood building an engine and that sort of thing really well. But oh man, it was so much fun. We were all cheering. The zombies came out and they were eating everybody. I had a vampire card even though I wasn't a loyalist, but having the vampire meant I got to turn other people's agents into vampires. That was really fun. Boy howdy, it was a really good time. And I can't wait to play it again. I'm definitely going to start putting it in my toggle bag to try to play just on the fly. Now that I've played it again recently, I remember it, I can teach it. I want to get another game in, ideally within a month, if not that, soon. So, A Study in Emerald by Martin Wallace. Fantastic game. Really exciting. And with that, I'm home and we're out of time. So thanks for joining me. What have you been playing lately? If you had an all-day game day, what's the one game you would want to get to the table? Let me know on BoardGameGeek Guild 3269. And I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.